I start with the picture that actually describes discrimination. Nowadays, it's quite famous all over the world. In some places, black people are not allowed. In some places, these peoples are not allowed. But here, when the Second World War started, Hitler decided that the Jews are not allowed to enjoy nature, enjoy anywhere public that people can rest and have fun. They were not allowed to swim. They are not allowed to go to the beaches, to use the toilets, or to walk in the parks. Again, to me, it's a picture of nowadays discrimination, even in America, the so-called very developed country. The second picture that I want to talk about, this Jew being kicked just because of one thing. He was trying to save the Torah scroll from the burning synagogues. This picture actually, my nephew, Tzachi, as a history teacher, he uses it to teach about the Crystal Night. You know, you see burning synagogues, shouts from inside and outside, and when somebody tries to actually save the most sacred and holy thing, more even important than his life, he's been kicked by this German soldier and trying to prevent him from just saving a Torah scroll. What can a Torah scroll hurt this German soldier? So this is one act of heroism. The synagogues burning, some people are burning inside, and this Jew trying to save his life equals the Torah scrolls. This is a picture that I feel very emotional about, and I learned about it through my mother's introduction, and maybe through my imagination. My mother said that the little children in the ghetto were the heroes, the real heroes, the little heroes. The family depended on them. They are providers for food. They could sneak out of the ghetto, come back with some food, but whatever you could see is big black eyes, frightened eyes, small and very skinny children that are crawling all over the place to bring food for the family. Little Leo, my uncle, mother's brother, one day he went out and tried to find food for his family. He went out to the ghetto, found an empty house and went into it, and all of a sudden there was a whistle, and even from the ghetto itself, his parents felt and his sister felt that, oh, this is an aktia, and the Germans are here to look for any Jews that were left, and probably little Leo will be found. Little Leo, being so frightened, he just hid under a mattress that was probably also full of blood because, previous Jews were thrown out of the house. And he was trying to hide, and the German soldier came in. He stood upon the mattress with this really barbarous boot, and he never felt that a little boy of 14 is lying under. I also keep it, comparing with legends. There is a legend of a princess that couldn't sleep because of a little pea. And this boot didn't even feel that a Jewish child is under. whatever Leo found, it wasn't food. He just found a very dirty and full, covered with blood, little coat that he recognized belonged to his cousin Yecheskel. He still remember Yecheskel moving round about like a model and saying, "Oh, Yecheskel is so beautiful." So instead of food, he brought this little jacket full of blood, and this was actually bedding, like a mattress for the family that was hidden under the dustbin for 6 weeks. Trying to evacuate the Jews from the houses and maybe to working camps, maybe to concentration camps, with no remorse for the women, children, shooting them and piling them up on trucks. They were sent probably either to work, either to concentration camps, and my uncle, Alex, was caught on one of these actions and was taken later on to a working camp, and we found out that he was found his death in Auschwitz because we found his little picture in Canada. Not Canada, the barrack. This picture is also, I think, from my mother's experience. She was in a wagon like this, crowded with hundreds of people who were actually crying for air, crying for food. You can see old people, young people, some of them are climbing to catch some fresh air. The train was traveling miles and miles with these people inside. It was a cattle wagon. And when the doors opened, at least half of them were actually dead. I'm talking now about the very good conditions of Auschwitz Hotel. You have bunks, you have beds that are shared by 8 people at least, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the ones who are on the last floor, it is very difficult for them to climb up. So usually people try to find on the first floor. Sometimes you are so tired, how can you climb up to the 4th floor with your weak power? But no matter what, they were lying like sardines in this barrack, in these beds, and they were told, this is the place you are going to stay and to die. I look at this picture and I remember what my mother said when we entered Auschwitz with her. She couldn't speak well because she had a stroke. And I asked her, what do you remember about Auschwitz? And she says, I remember nothing. I can see the trees that don't remind me of anything. At that time there were no trees, no grass. But she says, I still remember the noise of people waking up, trying to straighten up the bed, and the smell, the terrible smell of the barrack, because there were no lavatories, they had to use one. So this is what she remembers. This is a very important picture for me that showed me that the Jews tried to rebel, tried to resist, and even women and men together. 3 women, we think that, my mother said that they were from Bendin, from her hometown, sneaked some ammunition to the men camp, and one of the crematoriums were dismissed, was turned into ashes. So at least one crematorium should stop working, because the crematoriums kept working day and night, day and night. So with the feeling that one crematorium at least will be out of order, some less people will be killed. And looking at this picture, I feel that the Allies did nothing actually to prevent this Holocaust, this disaster. They could bomb at least the rails, the trains, but they did nothing, because this is not a very important target for the war. So this is what happened, the deed and the punishment. The punishment was that actually there were 3 women. I don't remember if 2 of them were from Berlin or 3. I remember one of the names, Alla Gärtner, Rosia Robota, here, Regina and Regina. And they were hanged because of their crime. They gave the ammunition to the men to destroy one of the crematoriums. But they wouldn't tell the names of the men who took part in it. I believe that the men were found and of course were punished just as much. But the women looking at them, some of them were from the same town, Bendin, were not allowed even to share tears, to move an eye. They had to stare straight and to see how the punishment is being done. I'll go back to one of them. Okay. This is on the death march. Just after the Allies went into Germany and Poland, so the Germans decided to evacuate the concentration camp and let all the survivors walk miles and miles towards who knows where. You can see that the soldier is wearing, heavy uniform to prevent the cold. The poor women at this time, these are the women, are wearing just rugs. Some of them didn't even have shoes. Some of them who were trying to run away were just shot. And above you can see all the trains and all the trucks and cars being loaded with stuff maybe stolen from the houses and that were in the camp and going to the west. This is a picture that I remember my mother, I don't know if it is my mother or through reading it. It was just a few days before the liberation in Ravensbrück, I think. You can see still people are dying, and you can still see the very, very cruel face of this Nazi who is shouting, "We are still the masters here." And he says something about 2 minutes to, I can't remember what, 1 minute to your death. I'm so excited that I can't even remember what he said, but this picture actually indicates the fact that although they were actually on their knees, the Germans, but they are trying to play the role as if they're still controlling the world, and of course, controlling who? These skeletons, very, very thin, hungry, and frightened, in this case, women. This I was talking about it. I wanted to talk about this one. There was a search in the Jewish ghetto in Bendin. What were they looking for? They were looking for like black market. What is a black market? If you have an onion, if you have a potato, it means that you are smuggling. You are dealing with the black market. So they look at the pot to find whether they have any, smuggled food. They kick the food. The children are looking frightened. They're hungry. You can see the sign of the Jewish people, one of the symbols, the candlelight. And my mother added to this picture a story that the other aunt was in another room doing the washing. So one of the officers looked at it and, excuse me for saying it, pulled his trousers and peed into the washing. And later on he found some ink and put the ink into the washing. What for? Is it shaming? Is it just to prove that you are a hero, a big man? Is this a big man? Little people.